Thank you, Blake. Thanks, Kevin. Wes?
Item 7 is for a discussion from Mr. Warren Hardy, who will present information and answer questions concerning the current status of the Virgin River Habitat Conservation Recovery Program. Mr. Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, Warren Hardy with the Hardy Consulting Group. My understanding that a member of the public asked that I come back and give a report on where we are with the habitat study, and also a legislative update. I think we are overdue for the update on the habitat study, so I think the timing is good, and I apologize for not coming forward on my own on that, because I do think the timing's right. On the legislative report, I've done a full legislative report to the board. So rather than, unless there are questions or specifics the board would like me to come back and address at the next meeting, whoever that member of the public was, I'd be happy the staff has my cell number, and just please feel free to give me a call, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And if at any point the board wants me to come back and provide more detail on the legislative session, if that meets the board's, or I could redo the presentation I did a couple of months ago, whichever the board would prefer. But with regard to the habitat plan, as the board knows, that's something we were able to sort of hit the reset button on when I first came on board. It is a contract or a plan that's handled by the city of Mesquite, and so this board has sort of directed that we work with the city of Mesquite and their folks over there to get this completed. And I can't say enough good about the work that John Willis at the city of Mesquite has done on this. He is in charge. He's in control and doing a phenomenal job. And I'm providing the support I can. And of course, our own Aaron Bunker participates in those meetings as well and has done a phenomenal job representing the board. I think there's good news in this regard. I mean, it's one of the things. Everything we've talked about, where we want to go, we're still headed in that general direction. I would even say that, and again, this is, you know, I guess I'm saying it for the record, but I would say that the single fee is essentially a done deal. That was one of the objectives. We obviously wanted to keep that fee at $5.50. We're still in line, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But those were our two primary objectives going into this, that we have a single fee and that we keep it as low as possible. The single fee, I think, is essentially a done deal. The other is still up in the air a little bit, and I'll talk about that in a minute. To date, SNWA, their part of the participation was to complete the first 6 chapters of the plan, and that is done. So SNWA for all are substantially complete. So they're fairly well finished with their part of it. However, we got to the environmental impact study, and their recommendation was, based on the recommendation of their consultant, that we go back and start over and do a complete new EIS. Well, Aaron and John and I, but mostly Aaron and John said, look, that just doesn't make any sense. Why would we spend the money to go back and start from scratch when we really have one done? We've spent in excess of $1 million to get it done. So we have taken that responsibility back. The city has issued an RFQ. We anticipate having a consultant on board as soon as the end of the month to start moving through with that. We think that makes a lot of sense. They don't particularly, SNWA, Fish and Wildlife, they don't particularly have any problem with that approach, but it's something we've had to take on for ourselves, which I think makes a lot of sense from a bunch of different perspectives. One of the things that's a little discouraging is the latest time estimate we got from the Southern Nevada Water Authority and others on the estimating the completion date of this. They're giving us the end of 2015 to the middle of 2016. Now, obviously, that's a huge concern to us because we want to make sure that our funds are extended, and that's an issue that has to be appealed to the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Bureau of Land Management. That is done, or in process of being done. I talked to John Ellis today, and Willis today, and we are highly optimistic that the extension of those funds is going to be approved. But that obviously has to happen, and so we're going to continue to watch that carefully. And if we need to, we'll involve our congressional delegation in that, because that's obviously a threshold issue for us. So the EIS was a stumbling block that slowed us down a little bit, but again, the RFQs are out, and we expect to have a consultant on by the end of the month. The other issue of trying to keep the fee at $550, you recall that during the last legislative session, when we went through all of the changes here, there was an attempt or a move by the county and some others to increase the fee that is allowed by statute to, I think the original request was they wanted to go to any, I'm trying to remember the exact language they wanted to amend at any reasonable amount. Since it was our legislation, really, since we were the ones that requested it through Crescent Hardy, Assemblyman Hardy, we said, no, let's just keep it at $5.50. If you guys feel like going forward, you need to come back independently through your legislation to make the case that it needs to be increased, and that's fine. So that's something that's working in our favor. Now, the thing that will ultimately decide whether we're able to keep the rate, the single rate at $5.50, is what species are included in the plan. That is still unresolved. That is an issue we've got to have. There's a lot of moving parts in that. We don't know what will happen when environmentalist groups and others get involved. However, we feel very strong. We've had some preliminary discussions with Fish and Wildlife, with BLM, with county, with Southern Nevada Water Authority, and we believe there are only really should be a couple of plant species that are in question, which are going to be de minimis in the cost. Now, again, I can't make any guarantees there because that's a very fluid situation. However, I will tell you this. Aaron and John and I feel very strongly that we can make a very, very good case in terms of what impact we're really having on species, and we should be able to keep, I think we should be able to keep that at $5.50. A lot of moving parts in that, but again, right now the law doesn't allow you to exceed $5.50 anyway, but we feel very, very confident. And really, frankly, that's partially based on discussion with Southern Nevada Water Authority and others, that the species that we're really having an impact on shouldn't require more than that $550 impact fee. So everything's on target. Again, the environmental impact study created a little bit of a bump in the road, but that's been resolved by doing it ourselves. We think we're going to get a good product out of that. And at some point in the near future, we'll get to the discussion about which species ought to be covered. I don't anticipate a lot of push from the other stakeholders to reach out and grab other species. I think it's pretty clearly defined, and we can make a pretty good case of what we're impacting and what we're not impacting. And then that will make the final determination on the final number. But we feel like everything's, we're a little bit frustrated with the time. We thought we may be done by now. And we're a little bit frustrated with the time. We will obviously have some control over the next step of the process because we will hire the consultant that's doing the environmental impact adjustment to the study. So maybe we'll have a little bit of control over the timing, and hopefully we can extend that. But the important thing is there that we get the funds extended, which I'd be very surprised if BLM and Fish and Wildlife doesn't approve that. So that's where we are, and we continue to work, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.